everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have everyone joining us today, and a happy Easter by the time you listen to this. I'm joined by my co-host, Kay Libra. How are you doing, Kay Libra?
Oh man, I don't want to work today, but I'm gonna. But we have Soletta Sundays coming back, and if you know, you know.
I don't know what that is, actually, so I guess I just don't know.
Wish for Mercury, the second season premieres as of this recording tomorrow on Sunday.
Cool. We have a special guest that is joining us here today. I'm really excited to chat with him about a few topics. Just a quick note before we get started, as always, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. If you'd like to support us, you can ask the hosts different questions. Depending on the tier, you can get your name in the credits. It's very nice and helps us keep going and such. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give us a like, share, subscribe, press the button, bell, whatever it is. It does help as well. But yeah, we're really excited to have ColonelBen with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello. It's an honor being here. I've been an onlooker when it comes to the transformation scene for a long while, but I don't really necessarily talk with a lot of people about it outside of really close friends.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today to talk about it as well. I know that one of the topics that we have on the docket to discuss today is one that I think you have a pretty unique perspective on, and that was why we were really keen to have you aboard.
So it's going to be cool to be able to talk to you because I had no idea that you were into hypnosis on like any level. You know, when you told me, I was like, why? And I thought that you had some really interesting takes on what the appeal is to you because usually the hypnosis theme or gimmick or trope comes down to a kind of power play or control, but you had some different takes on it, and I thought it'd be cool for you to be able to talk about it.
Okay, well, yeah. The thing about hypnosis is that how it works in real life and how it works in media and fiction are completely different ballgames. Hypnosis is technically a deep state of relaxation and focus. It can be used in many positive ways, basically to help you you can use it for like help you be positive about yourself, about how you feel about certain things. And clearly a lot of people think that it's just it's a mind control thing when it comes to, because when it's portrayed in media, it's usually a mind control thing.
I want to build on that actually because I know that I have dabbled at times with hypnosis and it's never really worked for me, and I've had conversations with people as to why that might be and speculated on it, but it really is like you're describing. Like, it's more about putting the person at ease so that they can kind of slip into a state of deep relaxation at which suggestibility is heightened. But it's not necessarily oh yes, I'm going to say a few words, and now you're just going to do whatever it is that I'm telling you to do.
Yeah, because that's what people think. It's like, I'm going to snap my fingers and suddenly you're going to forget about the world around you and you're going to go blank. You're not going to say anything. Your body's going to be motionless. That's not how it works. Like, even when we don't know it, we tend to be in a hypnotic state at times throughout the day when you're either driving or doing something that you're really, really into, like playing video games or just watching something in general, and you're just focused on what you're doing at the moment. That's what it is.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think of it in those terms of like being in a hypnotic state being so broad. Like, I think the immediate reaction I imagine people might have to that is like, what do you mean I'm being hypnotized as I'm driving?
It's just that the whole trance-like state is something that you can start to notice the moment that you're doing something that you're otherwise comfortable with, and you start thinking about really heavily. If you take yourself out of certain, I guess, modes, then you'll start to screw up, or just like your whole thought process will begin to kind of muddy and complicate itself. So instead of just doing things, you'll start to overthink everything, and that's where you have like I was just thinking about whatever, and then suddenly I forgot like a certain step because you don't really think about it.
Yeah, the thing about hypnosis in general in real life is that it's not like you stop thinking, period. Like you will have thoughts. It could be random, it could be what you're focused on. It's all about the state, whether how you feel at the moment about it. Like you're not worried about things around you. You're just worried about the present, what's going on at the moment.
So that sounds like the opposite of what hypnosis tends to be, where you're dissociated into doing a task, but you're saying that it's really about keeping you grounded.
It reminds me of the sort of mindfulness things that oftentimes people are told about and try to practice in terms of centering oneself. It doesn't sound like that's too different from a hypnotic state then.
Media portrays it more like brainwashing and general mind control. The person doing the hypnotizing has full control of the other person, and that also doesn't work in real life because your mind and body won't do anything that you don't want it to do.
How did you come about learning these little things? Because I think enough people either don't come across that kind of information, or they just don't bother even thinking about it.
Well, it's a mix of general curiosity and just trying to find ways to calm, because I have a lot of anxiety issues. And those anxiety issues build up, and it makes it really hard for me to relax and to focus on things that I really like. And, there are breathing techniques, sure, and that helps, but there's a certain state of mind that you need to relax in order to be able to focus on the task at hand. And basically, I browsed, got curious, and read about it in countless places because, like I said, how they portray it in media and movies and in fiction and art and all that stuff, it's completely different from how it's presented, how it works in real life. Because, for instance, in art, usually they put the person into like a sleep-like state, and they have complete and utter control of them, and whatever they say, that's what the person will do. But unless the person really wants that, their body and mind will reject it.
So then I'm curious. So you have clearly explored it quite a bit. I'm curious to know a little bit about like what your direct experiences have been as you've kind of like played with some of these topics.
Well, my direct experience is that I've tried meditation. Meditation is pretty much close to what getting into a hypnotic state is, where you're trying to make sure that your surrounding area is as quiet as possible, and you're not focused on your problems. You're not focused on the TV or what's going on your phone. You're trying to focus on yourself, what you're feeling, and trying to understand those feelings pretty much.
Yeah, I see how you could meditate and get that sort of benefit out of it. I've also heard of it as you sit and you kind of let one thought pass and then let the other come, where you're only taking on one thought at a time.
Yes.
Aside from letting them kind of blur together
or overwhelm you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did you hear about that, Zil, with like meditation?
Yeah, I've heard about that before. I maybe this is the opposite end of like the anxiety spectrum speaking, but like I found that when I've tried to engage with those kinds of things, I just have a real hard time shutting down the external, not stimuli, but like the external distractions. Like it can be difficult to practice that sort of meditation where it's like you only allow like one thought to come in and then another one to come out, because constantly my brain is like has different thoughts. Actually, maybe this is more an ADHD thing than an anxiety thing now that I'm thinking about it out loud.
No, it can also apply to anxiety, because the thing with anxiety is that it's overwhelming. It can make you feel kind of irrational. A lot of things are happening all at once and you have no real way of solving the issues. So you might have just one problem and ends up feeling like a million problems because you're overthinking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Yeah, and the thing is that with hypnosis and meditation, instead of worrying about all those problems at once, you just go from one thought to another. It's like I said, it's not that your thoughts are going to be gone completely. It's that you give it the time it needs for it to process through your brain. That way you can move on from it and maybe go into another thought or another thought or another thought until you feel much better about yourself or feel relaxed and feel like you can actually tackle those problems.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
I was just gonna say that when it comes to being able to deal with your problems and everything, it seems to be, again, with the theme with us teaching some people how to be human on this podcast.
Well, I guess speaking of that then, obviously there's a lot of hypnosis files out there that deal directly with transformation. I can think of a few that I have definitely tried. Have you kind of engaged with any of those files in the past, or like those kinds of like themes in the hypnosis files you've looked at? And if so, what has your experience been with that?
I have tried some of them, but I never really had any kind of direct results, because the thing is that when it comes to hypnosis files, it's a matter of consistency. It's a matter of applying yourself and going in with the mindset that this is something you want. If you're doubtful about it and you're not consistent, you're obviously not going to get any results. And it's not a thing that's going to be like, oh, I'll do it today and it'll give me direct results. I'll do it this week and it'll give me direct results. It could take a long time, and it's also a matter of, well, depending on what it is, but it's also a matter of imagination and trying to make this new perspective into reality. These new feelings or whatever it is, like, oh, maybe I'm growing a tail, how would that feel? That's something that you have to put into perspective and imagine before it actually becomes something that, hey, maybe it can feel like this, and then you move from there.
Okay, so that's interesting, because then that would mean that not only do you have to be comfortable enough with yourself to accept that you want it, which is what I think that you, because kind of laid out that baseline at the start, where if you don't already want it, you're not going to do it. But I didn't think about having to conceptualize, something like the feeling of it before maybe it starts to work. Because, I mean, there are people that I talk to who dream about it, and it can be it can be like an intense experience, but I don't know, otherwise they have feelings that they actually get from it.
Yeah, because when it comes to dreams, like, sometimes some people can vividly dream something and they feel those, whatever is happening in the dreams. I know I've had situations like that, but they're usually more stressful, not fun. But yeah, it's all about the perspective, how you think it would feel, and that doesn't come easy.
Do you think maybe at the time that you were trying the hypnosis stuff that you didn't have a real framework about what to expect or what kind of sensations to expect?
Yeah, and I wasn't taking it too seriously as well. Like I said, you got to be in the right frame of mind for these things. If you're not, you're gonna waste your time. It's just gonna end up wasting your time.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when I played with stuff like that in the past, I tried a few different methods actually because I thought maybe it was the method itself. So not only did I experiment with listening to files, I also experimented with like live people doing it. So there were at least, oh, probably 3 or 4 different people that I did like have experiences with. And to be clear, they were all wonderful people. I don't blame them for any of this. But now that you've kind of mentioned it, I do wonder if it was the mindset because it never really fully stuck with me. Like and to be clear, I was very much like I wanted it to work, so it wasn't really that perspective, but it definitely was just like it didn't really get in there in the way that I wanted it to. I know that a friend of the pod, Casually Noted, mentioned to me, because he's worked as a hypnotist before, that it is not only just the frame of reference and like the mindset, but also like the method by which the hypnosis is done, because sometimes you need more than just like a voice chat type thing. Like sometimes you actually need to be there almost like physically or like virtually in like a VR chat or something, because you need to make that kind of connection with the person who's doing the influencing on you. And in particular, one thing that I think can also sometimes make it harder for people is like you do kind of need a little bit of like a base level of trust with the person who's conducting the session, be it through a file or through in person or over voice chat or whatever. And if you don't have that trust, your mind can like kind of put up these barriers to actually going under, because it's like, well, I do want these things, but if I'm giving up my suggestibility to someone and I don't fully have faith in them to use that suggestibility appropriately, I'm not even going to open myself up to the possibility at all. And so I wonder, particularly for someone like me who's like struggled to enter that kind of hypnotic state, if that's also playing into things too.
This is true, because the thing is that, like with pretty much everything, hypnosis can be used for good and bad. And you end up getting this fear that, hey, what if he implants something to mess with me and I don't realize it, and that causes either problems for me at work or for me with friends or in public. What if these suggestions or these things he implanted in me come out and it ends up embarrassing me or ruining my life? Those are very real fears that also becomes part of the problem why something doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough because, there's also the case of like, again, circling back to like the mental illness angle, like if you have like anxiety about these things, then it can make it really challenging to like give over that kind of full trust, even if you like already like from like a more superficial level trust the person. Like it's that deep part of you that can maybe struggle to actually trust someone else with that kind of like, not control or subliminal messaging or what have you.
The mind is very complicated and complex, and everyone's pretty much different. Like, look at how depression works. You can have so many things that make you happy. You can have friends that tell you that they love you, and you still feel like crap because your mind's like just hammering home how much you suck.
Yeah, it's tough. It's so fucking tough. I wonder then, when we think about these TF hypnosis files or like sessions, have you had any that like really stood out to you as like being really good, or like experiences that you had that were like, damn, I really like could feel the tail, or like things like that?
That's a good question. I can't really recall any at the moment, but I have seen like quite a couple of them. I've seen a couple of like hypnosis transformations in regards to like Pokemon stuff, where the person is being told to feel like their aura, and the changes as more suggestions are mentioned. Another thing that I want to mention, because now that I'm talking about this, is that you gotta have some familiarity with the subject or topic that's being suggested to you. Because if you're clueless about it, then how are you gonna feel any of that?
It's really funny now because I think that just leans more into what people don't understand about hypnosis, which is the willingness toward it. I always saw hypnosis framed as we are going to we are going to strip you of something. We are going to program you. That's mostly the thing. We are going to make you into this thing that you are not. And the more we talk about this, it really is leaning more into this is what you really want. I know it, so that's what we're going to do.
That's uh, that's because usually when it comes to transformation as a fantasy, people use it as a sort of escape from how their current lives are. Like they don't like their current life. They wish they can start anew and start a different life without remembering all the things that stressed them out and caused them great emotional turmoil. And that's why most of the time it feels like transformation and hypnosis is like that. And I mean, I get it. Like, sometimes also, like, as I said, everybody's very different. Some people like taking command, but other people like being told what to do in order to feel like they have some kind of purpose.
The purpose angle is interesting to me too, because usually, again, it's like a different kind of framing, a different kind of vibe that I get, where instead of that, uh, it's being free by giving away some of your freedom because you don't have to worry about certain things if somebody else is in charge, that sort of thing. Think about that too, which now makes me think. So, like, if you like it for transformation, what are some examples or scenarios that you've seen that you're just like, yeah, that's my jam for it?
That's that. I'm trying to think of an example right now. Sorry.
I mean, I'll jump in on one that while you're thinking, one of the ones that actually I've tried through like files and such is like mannequin scenarios where you can like get hypnotized into that, because that is more around having to imagine extra limbs or things. It's more about like a almost BDSM type change. And so I had thought that that might be like an easier ground level thing to try to get into it. And I had very middling success with it, but there were a few particular files that I tried that seemed to make like a little bit of progress, at least in that one, even if like it was at the end of the day mostly just like me up to my own imagination. So I'll mention that one. That was one that I definitely tried a bit. And honestly, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but there's a lot of transformation hypnosis files on a particular website, a hypnosis website called warpmymind.com, which, excuse the presentation of the website because it feels like it's straight out of 2005 in terms of the interface and everything.
It's probably that old, if I'm being real honest with you.
Yeah, it probably is. But there's some interesting stuff on there that I have poked around with over the years, and that was definitely one of the files that I tried when I was like back when I was really trying to get into things. But anyways, enough about me. I know Ben, you're going to mention something.
What I was gonna mention is like things like files regarding to like like size increase, imagining the world getting smaller around you, or things getting bigger. That kind of stuff interests me sometimes. Same goes for like feeling sensations where you're not really being physically touched there, but you would imagine you're having sensations there of being touched. When it comes to like transformation art regarding hypnosis, it has to do with it, for me at least. It's about getting into a role of something you'd enjoy being for like maybe a day or two. Because at least when it comes to me, it's like I always find it fascinating. For me, transformation's always been fascinating because it's seeing the world through another perspective. You know, having abilities or strengths that you don't have as a regular person. But I would never love being that form forever because there are always disadvantages that people don't really take into consideration. Things such as what you're forced to eat from now on, what you have to do to maintain your body in a healthy state.
Okay, so now I'm thinking, since you love Pokemon, and if you could be your Pokemon of choice, would you really rather not be that Pokemon for good? And if so, why not? Because the thing is, with a lot of Pokemon, because they're so, I guess, nebulous in terms of how they work, I don't know, they don't really have to do or be anything. So you can just apply your own rules. So if you wanted to be one, assuming that you do, then, why not stay that way?
Well, because there's like things like dexterity issues. You're missing fingers. You don't have a thumb.
Oh yeah, a lot of them don't have thumbs.
How the hell are you gonna grip anything without a thumb? Many things that you don't know that you are used to doing as a person are just gone.
So what's coming to mind that doesn't have thumbs? Because there are plenty of Pokemon that you could either rationalize, or they do have thumbs. Some of them, they can hold things.
They can, yeah. I mean, for example, I don't know how the hell a Lucario is supposed to hold anything.
That's a good point, actually. I mean, I personally would be okay with that if I got to become a Lucario, but I'm biased.
Like Mewtwo, you can say Mewtwo can hold things.
Yeah.
Because he technically has a thumb. He has 3 fingers, even though they're weird. But it would still take some getting used to.
Okay, so why would you feel like relinquishing your hands then?
For Lucario?
Yeah, like if you were just stuck as the Lucario, it doesn't sound like a bad time to use. So why is that?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I would like to do the meme of jumping and gesturing at how Lucario looks and be Exhibit A. But I mean, I guess for Lucario specifically for me, I mean, this is gonna sound a little bit whatever, but I do really like how Lucario's feet look. That has always been an attraction for me. I think that Lucario has a really great design overall. I love the kind of absurdity of the spike in the middle of the chest, and every TF that I've seen with someone turning into a Lucario always emphasizes that, and it's just such a funny feature to me that I also I can't even fathom how that would feel properly, and that fascinates me. And then of course the snout's really great, and just I think the overall I guess mindset of the fighting type Pokemon resonates with me, because I am the kind of person who will roll up for my friends, and I'm always down to fight in a Denny's parking lot. So having that ability from Lucario in terms of the moveset and stuff definitely is an appeal for me as well.
Okay, so speaking on the Lucario part, when I think of Lucario and the chest spike, I always think how you can't hug people a specific way anymore because you'll end up hurting them. And you also have to take into consideration the spikes on your fucking hands.
Yes.
Because you can't just throw your arm around and end up slapping somebody by accident. Just
That's
impaling them. But overall, I think when it comes to things like that, I think of the new athleticism that you have now compared to a regular person, and how you're less frail, because you as a person can't punch a boulder and break it into a million pieces. You're gonna break your hand.
Yeah.
No matter how much you tell yourself mind over matter, matter still matters. So you have new strengths, but with that also comes the fact that Lucario can't talk. I mean, Lucario has been shown to use telepathy for talking. That's useful. You can have communication with people still, but there is no talking.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that the telepathy is definitely an appeal of mine. I mean, with Pokemon in general, your mileage can definitely vary in terms of the talking stuff, because some people lean into they've transformed so they can still go back and forth. I honestly prefer the OG way, and then the telepathy is like a nice way around it that not every Pokemon has access to, but like a few of them do that I very much appreciate. Lugia definitely falls into that category as well. And I'll say also, just like on the topic of Pokemon and hypnosis, there's definitely there's a built-in kind of one-to-one appeal there, because there are some that are shown to have those kinds of like quote-unquote abilities, and even if it's not portrayed in the way that hypnosis actually works, I definitely think that it has elevated the focus that people have in terms of Pokemon and hypnosis going hand to hand quite often together.
When you talk about that, I think of all those Pokédex entries where it mentions a kid with psychic powers just waking up and being like a Kadabra out of nowhere. It's like, what happened in your dreams for that to occur? You must have been in some kind of focus, relaxed state that
Oh
just
yeah.
Oh man, it just made me think, like, what about being in a trance or in, like, I don't know, because if you're dreaming, you could argue you're also in some kind of trance,
you are, yeah.
and just Pokemon that dream of what it's like to be a human and waking up like, oh fuck, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. The opposite could happen, and I think should be explored, because then you'd have a different kind of fish out of water thing. Like, nobody else here has watched Disenchanted. I don't know if you watched Disenchanted, Ben.
No.
I haven't either.
So there's an episode where one of the main characters, who's the king of the main kingdom, because there are other places, and he falls in love with I guess you could call it a skinwalker or a kind of like sulky type creature, but she's a bear. He falls in love with a bear. And of course, he has a relationship with her outside of the bear's body, and they get along great. But she still has a bunch of bear mannerisms, because that is what she really is. And spoiler alert, when it comes to that episode, as well as their relationship goes, it doesn't last, because it comes down to the fact that she is actually a bear and she can't really live with him the way that he does. And so I think about, how it would be cool for the reverse if your curiosities about the other world are become so intense you end up living that way for real, whether permanently or not.
I think that's really interesting, and it can work with like specific Pokemon. I mean, Ditto's one of them. Ditto can pretty much transform into anything. Ditto can transform into a human. It's even been shown in the Detective Pikachu movie. So that must be quite the transition, going from living in the wild, surviving in the wild, to surviving in society. Which one is crueler?
Yeah.
And not only that, but there's also Zoroark. Zoroark can't technically transform, but it can disguise itself, and it can communicate through its illusions. And it has been shown to actually disguise itself as people to walk among them.
Yeah, it casts a glamour.
Yeah, that's interesting. How would they? Because it's clear, at least in the Pokemon universe, Pokemon can get jobs, but imagine like an actual Pokemon disguised as a human in like an office job, and he's the best at it.
I've seen a few like comics or like people on Twitter who like have OCs that kind of do that kind of thing. Like I've seen a Zoroark OC who like works as like a call center person.
I know who you're talking about. I really like those. I really like those comics. They're very good. And how difficult it is to maintain the form in very stressful situations.
Yeah, and the fact that like you could slip up too, because like I remember the character like was talking to a Chansey at one point, and then the Chansey was like, "Wait, what the fuck? Why are you able to talk to me?"
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh man, I guess I want to make sure we have time for our other topic, but I guess like to kind of wrap this up, and honestly I feel like there's still so much more we could talk about hypnosis, so I'm sure we'll come back to this at some point. But if people are curious and like want to like pursue trying to get into hypnosis more. Do you have any like kind of closing thoughts or advice for people?
You have to want to be in whatever role you're trying to get yourself into. You have to really, really look into yourself and see if that doesn't make you uncomfortable, if you're truly comfortable with it. Because that's the whole thing. It's about being in that role. It's about trying to feel those sensations. It's about being in the mindset that that's what you would want to experience.
It makes sense to me, especially after everything, because shit, even I tried that stuff like a little while just to see if something would happen. But knowing myself, I'm like, yeah, of course it wouldn't have worked. I didn't take it too seriously. The presentation was off to me, and also I was just like, nah, I don't really want this. I'm just curious. Like, come on, make me a believer. But yeah, it takes more than that, as I've learned both here and like leading up to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think if people are curious in learning more, I know that there are like various like community kind of groups per se that like are focused around that. I don't have like any particular to recommend, but definitely like poke around and check out from people who are like more into the space, like their thoughts as well too. And as mentioned, there is that site warpmymind.com that looks like it's from 2005, but there are some pretty cool hypnosis files on there too.
Mm-hmm. Man, I didn't even know if that. And let me see if that site is actually up. Actually,
it's still.
Oh no, it is.
Still
I
up,
have it open. I have it open on my computer right now, so I know it's up. There's files that get uploaded like every day, so
really?
It's quite active. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of amateurish files,
yes.
but
Yes.
I remember that site for as long as like Transfer. That's how old it is.
It's been around just as long, absolutely. So yeah, there's some cool stuff. There. Oh, so I wanted to get to the other Patreon topic that was voted on for us to chat about, and it was TF in non-standard media. So that's like transformation content outside of like the standard trio of like movies and TV shows and video games. I feel like it should lend itself to actually like a lot of options, but I will confess that when we first got this topic, I was kind of like, man, what is left? And then Libra, you mentioned to me like right off the bat when I mentioned the topic, you were like, oh, like transforming toys, and I was like, oh yeah, that is a whole thing. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of like start things off there, because I know that you have a lot more experience on that than I do.
I mean, not too much more experience. Let me see, because I did enjoy transforming toys, and it was always cool, especially combiners. We talked about merging before. You can listen to the previous episodes. But yeah, combiners and transformers are a fun little piece of media, and that sort of thing kind of came back when I moved to Canada and I met my partner, who loves Transformers, which are like, ha ha ha, it's a transformation. But like, yeah, she really likes it. But more specifically, if she had anything with like a TFE vibe, or a character who is known for changing into monster forms or anything like that, she likes to get them. So that's a piece of, I guess, media, if you want to call it, that you can get transformation through. Because she'll have like a Beast Boy, or she has an animated Batman the Animated Series Man-Bat, because she knows that the premise is that they were human and now they're not. So you can find these here and there throughout the house if they have some kind of wear gimmick or something, or even just like straight up she's got 3 Animorphs Transformers. You can't get more on the nose than that.
That's really interesting how they managed to build those things to implement the transform mechanic sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, because I think it's kind of easy to dismiss the fact that they've got this robot that turns into some kind of vehicle, but watching enough toy reviews of those, I actually get really impressed as to how A becomes B, and sometimes C. Some of these things are like triple transformers, and I'm like, holy shit. And some
And
of them,
sometimes accurate to the show. On
yeah,
top of that,
yeah, like how do you do it? But I think to some people that doesn't really count, but transformation really is just from one form to another, one thing to another. That's the word. That's what it means. So if you can have that in the theme of a toy, you talk about if it's not visual, written, anything like that, then yeah, that's one thing that I think can be overlooked. You can
uh,
find it represented in toys and stuff. What's up, Ben?
that that reminds me of the old Power Ranger toys, where yeah, they had like a switch in the back that would change the head. There's like the Power Ranger helmet, fully transformed head was like in the chest, hidden somewhere. You press the switch in the back, and it would switch into the helmet form.
Yeah, it would just flip. It's really just like a little axle, so you could just kind of like push the head in one direction and force it to go that way without it, and you could play with it. I did that. I had one of those.
Oh, that's awesome. I definitely think that the transforming toys definitely counts, though. And I think that it's funny, it's literally in the name, but I forget oftentimes that, like, Transformers is, like, a transformation thing. But, like, you are literally going from one type of function, be it, like, walking around as, like, a massive form that can shoot things, to literally transporting yourself as a vehicle somewhere. So, like, it definitely counts.
Well, there was also the Beast Wars series
Yeah.
as well. The Beast Wars toys were pretty interesting because you go from like a rat to a robot,
Yeah.
and how they managed to make that is like, wow, how did you fit all this in this form?
And they're even adapting that into the new movie they're making, right? Yeah. I know they're covering the Beast Wars stuff, which is kind of exciting. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath because the film series has been very hit and miss, but I think that'll be cool to see how they depict it.
There is one other piece of non-standard media, and I think it fits the audio transformation content. People just record audio.
Yeah, I think that's a great one to mention as well. I know we've touched on it like briefly at various points, but like there are some really amazing audio TFs that have been made by people in the community over the years. Two that come to mind: White Flame, of course, does some really amazing stuff, and then Liz FX also does some really amazing audio TFs, and like it's kind of interesting to hear them because the depictions that you get are often fairly detailed, and oftentimes more detailed even than I think some of the transformations we've got lucky enough to see depicted on screen. And they can get very intense. And I say this as someone who's gotten the opportunity to do voice acting for them. And I think that it's just so cool that you can take just someone's kind of like acting out the scenario live and add in all these different sound effects and distortions and all these other things to make it feel like a full scene that is happening just like out of your vision, but you can hear everything in crisp, perfect detail. Like that shit really fascinates me.
It helps with visualization when you can hear things and understand the intensity of what's going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, like one of the things that I think just I find so cool about them is the different sound effects that will get added in to make it sound real. So like you can hear the bones crunching, or like the clothes ripping, or distorting the voice of the person to make it sound more animalistic, and merging it potentially with like different animal sounds or whatever it is that the person is turning into. I think that's just such a cool, innovative thing, and I don't like when I think of TF, that's not necessarily where my mind would have gone to in terms of like content to produce. but it's some of the most fascinating shit out there.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do. It's not easy. Moaning and saying whatever's happening to you is not the easy way to make something that's really compelling. And if it works for you, good for you. You have more to enjoy. I have listened to some of these and I'm just like, you know, you do need to finesse it. You really do. I will say that one of the ones that I really enjoy comes from All Luck, No Life, who does like a spread of things, writes a lot of stories, does a bit of photo manipulation stuff that you can find on DA, but not FA for, you know, if you know, again, you know. But but also on FA has uploaded some audio transformations that I really, really like. And one of the things I like about it was that I think the first one that that was done was kept deliberately ambiguous. Like, it's just somebody turning into something, but they made it like really moany, and I was just like, oh shit, this works for me because I can apply it to whatever I want, like almost whatever I want. I could just apply it to that, and that's really fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that shit. I will say that if people are curious and like looking for more of them, I mean, obviously we can drop the links to the people we've mentioned in the show notes, but generally speaking, like, there are a decent number of them on Fur Affinity. They're at least easier to find on Fur Affinity because you can actually search for things based on like the type of media, and like audio is one of them, so it can be a bit easier to find them there. I don't know if there's any on DeviantArt. Do they even have that functionality on DeviantArt?
I don't know if they can do music. Like, I know
No,
Weasel
I
can
don't
do
think
it.
so.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah, I know that Weasel has you can upload music and stuff there.
There's a decent number of people on Weasel, so that is a good point.
Yeah, so when it comes to non-standard stuff, there are a few options. I'm trying to think of anything else. It's like the toys and the audio stuff, and I mean, I don't know, plushies. Oh, wait a minute, just one last thing. I do remember that there have been a line of plushies where the gimmick is to push them, like to just to reach into them, pull them inside out. You can have a different plush.
Oh, yeah, I have one of those sitting like on my oh my god, what's the word? I have like a dresser with like a bunch of plushies on display, and I have one of those. They're like the marshmallows, is that what they're called? The current ones that all the kids like. I have a shark that turns into a dragon by doing the, like, exactly what you said, turning it inside out.
Yeah, and I forgot exactly. I remember seeing those. I was really, really young, and I don't remember what the line was called, but they got some. Even now in here, we got a couple of little birds, or was it like squids? I forgot, but depending on which form they're in, actually, you don't really change the form. You kind of change their mood, so they can be very grumpy and upset, or or they can be happy.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I really like those, and that's definitely an example of TF. The other one actually I was going to mention though was music videos. I think that definitely falls outside of like the standard for TF, or like standard TF media, and like there have been some really great bangers in terms of like transformation depicted in music videos. There's that one, and I am forgetting the artist, but the concept is this guy who's like at a club, and then he becomes, I think, a goat.
Yep.
What's the name of that one?
It's Cooper Temple Claws Blind Pilots.
Amazing, thank you.
It's called Blind Pilots. Really good. Yeah, and he's it's all about indulgence, and looks like he's having a great time, and stuff starts to happen to him, and it's a whole story in and of itself that a lot of people would enjoy. I like the first part of it. The whole thing is good because it all fits with the tone. If you haven't seen it, then give it a shot. It's a music video. The song is also okay. That doesn't hit me all that great, but I think the combination of it works for me as an entire experience. Just watching and listening to it. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know as well, it's not quite like quote unquote standard or whatever, but there's a Panic at the Disco music video that has like kind of like
Emperor's
a
New
devil
Clothes.
transformation. Yeah, there we go. That's the one. That one's also great. I really like the practical effects in that one. And I guess like thinking more broadly, like oftentimes these music videos that have transformation in them rely more on practical effects than like CGI, which is also a non-standard type of like transformation and is always really nice to see, frankly. And you know, this goes back to some of the conversations about movies, but like the over reliance on CG has in some ways kind of detracted at times in terms of getting to see the in-betweens and the moments that we really like as transformation fans. And so the fact that music videos are still relying more on practical effects and cool shit like that, I think heightens the ability of people to enjoy transformation in those contexts.
Oh, because in a music video, you get to draw out certain moments a little longer or have them go by a little quicker. You can pace it differently than when it comes to a story or a film of any kind, unless it's short.
There's also budget. The budget is smaller, and since it's not like a full-length movie, you don't have to worry about blowing your entire budget on one scene.
Or you could, because maybe the most important thing is having the band or the performer in view, you know, performing the song, which is not very complicated. And actually, Ben, do you know of any like music videos or anything like that?
I wish I can recall anything right now. If I'm being honest, I haven't. I don't have too much experience when it comes to music videos.
That's okay. Oh wait, there's one that I also really like. See, this is a song I don't remember, but by Billie Eilish. She is.
Oh, All the Good Girls Go to Hell.
Yeah, there you go. And she just fucking starts off getting jammed by a bunch of syringes, and is just cast off in what seems to be hell. And she, you know, starts to grow wings and stuff. And I was like, ooh, so this is fucking awesome.
That one is so fucking good. I can't believe I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Such a great video. Also, the song slaps on that one, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if anybody else knows about, like, music videos where, you know, people turn into this stuff, let us know. There are definitely more. The problem is finding them, because music is vast. Lots of music gets made, so stuff can get lost if you're just trying to find that, because that's not the focus for most of them anyway.
Yeah, it's not usually the focus, but we always appreciate when it comes up. So yeah, I feel like those ones, like you said, it's kind of incumbent on us as like a fandom to actually like spread them around, because otherwise, you know, people just won't know about them. And I've definitely seen that happen, like especially like when one or two really good ones like come out, it's like all the groups get spammed with that one like video. And honestly, I'm not complaining, because like it's good to make sure that people are aware of the cool content that is being produced out there, and that we can consume and enjoy. So
yeah, and there you go. It's a really fun place to be able to catch that sort of stuff. And you can get super artistic about it. That's one of the great things about music videos having a transformation in them, is that you can theme everything around it and really, really highlight all the things that that you would want to see. That is assuming that is your vision. I'm speaking strictly in terms of people making what they want to. If you want to see certain things and think, oh, they didn't do this, or they used too much this, or not enough whatever, or it would have been better if it had this vibe, then, I mean, it would have had to have been your music video then.
The one other thing that I'll mention in terms of non-standard media, and I don't think we'll get too much into it, because I feel like we could actually do a whole episode on it, but there have been some really interesting commercials over the years that focus on transformation, and I feel like there's so many that I don't know where to start at times. But I guess one of the ones that really stands out in my mind, and it stands out because it was more recent, but there was this commercial. It was a French commercial, and it was about this guy who was like doing a bunch of handiwork around his house. And as he's like doing like all of this work, he starts to like transform into a beaver, and the practical effects are really, really good. They do an amazing job with the tail and the fur and the teeth and all of that good stuff. And then at the end of the commercial, it kind of implies that he's not the only one. It's such a great bit, and I just like appreciate the love and detail that was gone into with the practical effects there again. But that's just like one small example. I mean, there was also like, I remember there was one that was like a woman who was like turning into a cat because she had a roommate who was a witch, and like that was her way of like saving in some way. I forget what the hell the commercial was actually about, but like she was getting fed food by the witch that turned her into the cat, and like she seemed totally unfazed by it, and that just made me laugh.
Damn. Now it's hard to think of now it's hard to think of them because they sort of like commercials go in one ear and go out the other, and I know they made the joke. They're on YouTube. You can find something called every '90s kids commercial ever, something like that. But they did touch on the whole thing where you would drink Capri Sun and turn into liquid metal.
Oh, I remember those.
And I always thought that was really cool. And I mean, they had Alex Mack. I don't remember the entire name of the show, but if you look up Alex Mack,
The Secret World of Alex Mack, I think it was called.
World, yeah,
Yeah.
Secret World of Alex Mack, and she could turn into that. I don't know what it was. I think the fucking Terminator 2 was the reason that it was so cool. Like, look, we have the tech to do this thing, and everybody gets wowed by it. And like, hey, I really liked watching Alex turn into liquid metal and get around and do shit. And I really, really wish I could do that when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. When you mentioned that, my mind instantly also went to like the fruit roll-up commercials where like you would have some of the kids TF into things. Honestly, there were so many 90s commercials where the product commercial was kid gets product, turns into something because of the product, zaniness ensues, and like I don't know who exactly was like the marketing people behind that, but thank you for that trend because it was wonderful.
I think it's fun, and it's a really ham-fisted way of saying, yeah, get this thing. It will make everything exciting and different and fun, and literally change your life. I mean, fuck it, get literal with it. It's fun to watch. Now we remember these things. It's stuck with us. There's, as much as anybody would hate to admit it, there's plenty of art, thoughtful art that goes into making a good commercial, a good advertisement. So that's something to appreciate, actually.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, I feel like this will probably be something we'll revisit at some point because there are just so many cool transformation commercials out there. But if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter, please leave us a comment as to what your favorite TF commercial is, because I would love to see more of them, and I think everyone would love to see more of them. So please flood us with links to that.
Yeah, hashtag TFTuesday Pod if you are on Twitter. That way we'll see it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, so we do have one audience question that I want to make sure we had time for, and it comes from Marco Schmidt. And Marco asks, what are your thoughts about the world of petrification and inanimate TFs? I am going to save my piece for the end because I feel like I talk about inanimate TF all the fucking time. So maybe we'll let you start off, Ben. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's terrifying, in all honesty. I'm a person who doesn't like doing one thing for too long. So being stuck in one position forever sounds like a complete nightmare. And considering the fact that you're petrified, but you're not dead, you're still thinking, you're still technically alive in a way, and I would go mad. I would rather be dead.
That's what you get sometimes out of that too, which is its own kind of horror.
It's like a lot of transformation in general. It's like it's a curse for some people, but it's not a curse for others.
Yeah, this is true.
Matter of perspective and all. That's why you gotta gear the harm in a certain way. That's why the idea of hell is pretty fucking wild, especially if you use the whole Divine Comedy version, because they use this idea of, I think it's in Divine Comedy, where they always change the punishment so you can never become numb to it.
Yeah, I think that is the case.
So,
which is fucking wild.
So yeah, that's Inanimate. Any other thoughts on it, Ben, or did you say your piece about it?
Yeah, I absolutely said my piece about it.
Well, I'll just say I'll ask one question then. If it was impermanent and it was like for a set period of time, would that change your perspective at all? Like maybe it was only a day or something.
That would depend on, when it comes to what kind of inanimate type of object you're becoming.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, because, for instance, like, let's say, for example, a plush. Like, a plush, you're receiving physical affection from kids or whoever obtained it, and that doesn't sound as bad. But let's say you're some statue in the middle of nowhere. No interaction with anyone around you. You don't see people pass by. It's just the weather and nature and everything. Just everything bad happening to you. It just sounds horrible. You're just stuck there, eroding. Just.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I can see the horror in that. Especially because it's just like that's you being a victim to time itself, even.
Well, what about you, Libra?
I think it could be fun. You can frame anything in a really shitty way, and I get being stuck that way. It's just my problem with Inanimate in most cases is really just the it's not just the literal, but the conceptual objectification of somebody else. So then, in a lot of cases, like, you become disposable, something to be forgotten, ignored, mistreated occasionally, because that's okay. And I don't like those themes,
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
Yeah, and I don't like that because, generally speaking, I want to take care of the things I have. It's something that I really wouldn't subscribe to, even in that sort of way. But I think it can be a lot of fun because I like vehicle transformations and stuff, and I always think to myself, okay, if you're going to become this thing for me, we're going to trust each other to get the job done. We are going to, I'm going to take care of you and you're going to take care of me. And that can be fun. There's a really, really horny anime. It's like Valkyrie something. And
they become weapons, don't
Valkyrie
they?
Drive. It is such a horny anime where the gimmick is it's always two women, and the other woman is made to be made as horny as possible, as quickly as possible, and that causes them to transform into a literal weapon.
Oh my god!
Yep.
So this is the horny version of Soul Eater, basically.
I guess
Pretty
so.
much.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
They turn into weapons, and like everybody's like skimpy and shit, but like that's the thing. And in theory, it's kind of like, oh, you're just going to be my sword, and I'm going to forget you were ever you. But the other side of it is that we do build relationships with things, especially with tools, vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
We gender them too, So the idea that it can only be a bad thing, or that it's mostly meant to be like a thing where you would possibly just mistreat it or abuse it. I think that says more about the person. I think it could be a lot of fun. Like I will always toot my own horn, but I made a coat rack transformation very, very hot for somebody, so I could do it with a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say, again, I've spoken at length at my perspective, so I'll just keep it brief here. But, I personally am not huge on the objects being treated like shit either trope. I like it when things are taken care of, and I know that I'm the kind of person who is I care about the things that I have, and I don't want to necessarily get rid of them, even sometimes when they've gone past the point of being actually useful. But
yeah, I've had that situation.
it's tough, and I imbue things with like, I guess it's a kind of like an anthropomorphization or whatever,
or animism.
but animism is the right word. But I think that there are definitely inanimate TFs out there that can be fun to not only necessarily be just an object, but also like have like fun interplays. Obviously plush, like you mentioned, Ben, that's a great one. Pool toys is another one. So you can have fun with it is all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and it's even like I said before when we were at the pool at FE.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we saw the pool toy. Was it Zill? No, of course not, because we don't know how they're going to treat Zill. Zill wouldn't be allowed to be treated like shit, in the pool. You don't know how they're going to be. Fuck that. Zill's not going to be in that position. We're not going to let that happen. Zill wouldn't let it happen.
It's true. I would not let that happen to me either, so. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think we covered a lot in this episode, which is great. Ben, I don't know if you had any other questions for us before we close off.
No, this has been an interesting experience for me. I'm pretty new to talking about these subjects with others.
Yeah, no, well, that's awesome. And again, I think one of the values of the podcast is also like we have all different kinds of people with different backgrounds on, and I think that it's cool to hear from like the perspective of someone who hasn't necessarily talked as much about it, but has done a lot of deep thinking about it, and I always really appreciate that. So yeah, I guess if people are looking for you online, Ben, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on YouTube. They can find me on FA as well. I have a gallery there. It's just on YouTube it's ColonelBen SP. On FA it's just ColonelBen.
Yep, and yeah, so yeah, you can find Ben there, and Ben's a very old friend of mine, and I think I'm just going to do it for you because you wouldn't do it for yourself, but he is a lot of fun to watch. I think he has great moments in games, and just he's fun. Give him a watch, tell your friends. I would really like for people to be able to give him a bit of times because, I see a bunch of people who stream their stuff, but it would be cool if he did too, especially since whenever he gets really good at a game, it's very impressive to watch and he can flow. And your commentary can be fucking awesome. There is very little time whenever I have him on stream, and if I got like either my partner here or my friends or anything, people will immediately start to pay attention and we'll get good laughs. And yeah, please.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for listening. Again, if you're interested in supporting us, you can always go to patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. It's, of course, optional, but it really does help us continue to pump out episodes at a weekly basis. We passed 50 episodes recently, and I forgot to mark that, but yeah, it just goes to show how many episodes we've put out, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do here. So in the meantime, I hope that everyone has a wonderful week this week. I hope you stay hydrated, continue to drink that water, keep an open mind, and stay TFy, and we will see you all here again next week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Ben. It's been really good talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you later, everybody. And oh yeah, one more thing, just use that hypnosis thing to your advantage. Use that desire to become something better. Do it.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Bye for now, everyone.
Later.